From a Railway Carriage by Robert Louis Stevenson. Faster than fairies, faster than witches, bridges and houses, hedges and ditches, and charging along like troops in a battle, all through the meadows, the horses and cattle, all of the sights of the hill and the plain, fly as thick as driving rain, and ever again in the wink of an eye, painted stations whistle by. Here is a child who clambers and scrambles all by himself and gathering brambles. Here is a tramp who stands and gazes, and there is the green for stringing the daisies. Here is a cart run away in the road, lumping along with man and load, and here is a mill and there is a river, each a glimpse and gone for ever. Welcome to our lesson from our Themes in Literature series, and today's theme is trains. Robert Louis Stevenson's very well known and very well loved poem From a Railway Carriage is just one of many examples of trains which feature in literature. Stevenson in this poem attempts to replicate the experience of riding in a train carriage, not just through the meaning of the words and the story that he's telling, but also through the rhythm of those words. And that rhythm mimics the clickety-clack sound of the train on the track and its constant rushing movement onwards. Trains have been used countless times in literature, including The Railway Children, Anna Karenina, Murder on the Orient Express, Harry Potter, The Girl on the Train, and so on. In The Railway Children, the children themselves rarely travel on the train, but it is a familiar visitor, as well as a means of bringing people into the story and taking them away. In Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, the train is the hand of fate. And without telling you too much of the storyline, if you haven't read it yet, it looms in the background as the decider of Anna's destiny. Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie uses the rather luxurious train of the title as a stage on which the events are played out, making it ideally suited for theatre or screen adaptation. The train in another work by Tolstoy, the Kreutzer Sonata, is a separate location from where the main story is taking place. And because the train is moving, it's neither in one place nor the other. So it's a kind of neutral no man's land from which the narrator can freely tell his story to a perfect stranger. Trains are used as all kinds of devices to aid storytelling. And in some cases, they even become characters themselves. Needless to say, the steam train is a very popular feature in literature. But our extract that we're going to look at in this lesson is from a more modern train riding experience. It's taken from The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. The train jolts and scrapes and screeches back into motion. The little pile of clothes disappears from view, and we trundle on towards London, moving at a brisk jogger's pace. Someone in the seat behind me gives a sigh of helpless irritation. The 8:04 slow train from Ashbury to Euston can test the patience of the most seasoned commuter. The journey is supposed to take 54 minutes, but it rarely does. This section of the track is ancient, decrepit, beset with signalling problems and never-ending engineering works. The train crawls along. It judders past warehouses and water towers, bridges and sheds, past modest Victorian houses, their backs turned squarely to the track. The journey described here isn't a particularly pleasant one. It's irritating. The person describing it clearly finds it quite a chore. First of all, she says the train jolts and scrapes and screeches. So we're being jolted around. It's not comfortable. It scrapes and screeches. They're not pleasant sounds. But anybody who has ridden a train into central London will know that feeling of being jolted around and the scraping and the screeching of the wheels on the tracks. She says we trundle on towards London. Trundle is a word that is heavy with meaning. It means that they move, but they move in a way that is slow and cumbersome and awkward and heavy and tiring. And the train is moving at a brisk jogger's pace. So even someone jogging could run as fast as this train. It's not a fast train. In fact, it's the 8:04 slow train. The slow train is the one that stops at every station along the way. So there are lots of stops, there are lots of delays along the way. You don't get to your destination quickly. And it can test the patience of the most seasoned commuter, and clearly it is testing the patience of the narrator in this passage. The journey's supposed to take 54 minutes, but it rarely does. So even though it's a slow train, it's actually being slower than it's meant to be. And this section of track is ancient, decrepit. The track is not a modern one, it's not a high-speed one. It needs some work. The train company are obviously saving money by putting off the work that needs to be done, and therefore the train is moving more slowly as a result and inconveniencing the passengers like this one. And then she talks about the never-ending engineering works. The engineering works cause more delays and they never seem to end. There always seems to be something going on. The train crawls along, another word that describes movement, but a particular kind of movement, a slow, laborious movement. Past warehouses, water towers, bridges, sheds. The scenery is not beautiful, it's not idyllic. She's not going through fields and forests with lovely hills and rivers. It's a very ugly urban landscape that she's passing through. And even the Victorian houses turn their backs to the track. Even they don't want anything to do with this slow, unpleasant train journey. So the mood of the passage is very dark, it's very gloomy, it's irritating, it's just not very nice. And then we have a lovely example of personification. The Victorian houses that are standing by the track are personified. They are made to seem human. They turn their backs on the track. They don't really turn their backs. Houses can't move. Houses don't have opinions, but we're made to feel as if they do, as if they want to turn their backs on this unpleasant experience of this train journey. We just found a very good example of personification in the extract we looked at. So let's explore personification a little bit more for our language focus. What is personification? It is a figure of speech in which an inanimate object, or even just an idea, is given human characteristics. For example, an author might attribute thoughts, feelings, or even facial expressions or body language to something which wouldn't normally be capable of emotion or thought. In our previous example, that was the houses at the side of the track. So now let's examine a couple more examples of personification with regard to trains. In The Railway Children, a very popular children's classic by Nesbit, the author says this: "They all climbed onto the top of the fence, and then suddenly there was a rumbling sound that made them look along the line to the right, where the dark mouth of a tunnel opened itself in the face of a rocky cliff. Next moment, a train had rushed out of the tunnel with a shriek and a snort and had slid noisily past them. They felt the rush of its passing, and the pebbles on the line jumped and rattled under it as it went by." So when we're told that the dark mouth of a tunnel opened itself in the face of a rocky cliff, the tunnel and the cliff itself are being personified. The tunnel is compared to a mouth, a dark mouth. The face that the mouth is on is the cliff. And we're told that the tunnel opened itself. Tunnels don't open themselves. It's comparing this tunnel to a person, a mouth that is capable of opening itself, presumably to swallow something, or in this case, to spit out a train. And then when the train comes, we're told it rushed out of the tunnel with a shriek and a snort. Shrieking and snorting are sounds associated with living things. A shriek is a noise that's usually associated with some kind of emotion behind it, an element of surprise or shock. And a snort, again, is a sound associated with something that's alive, not a train, which is an inanimate object. But the train is made to seem alive by using these words that are associated with living creatures. And the ultimate example of the personification of trains comes in the Reverend W. Awdry's railway series for children, where the engines are not only given names and characters, but they're also given voices of their own. Now Thomas is as happy as can be. He has a branch line all to himself and puffs proudly backwards and forwards with 2 coaches all day. He is never lonely because there is always some engine to talk to at the junction. Now it's time for you to have a go. Do you find train journeys a pleasure or a curse? Write about a journey that you've taken by train. Or if you haven't taken a journey by train, try to imagine one. But try to bring your description to life by using a little personification. Also, like Stevenson, choose your vocabulary carefully to create a more vivid effect, not just with the meaning of the words, but with the sounds of them as well. As usual, there is a worksheet to accompany this lesson, which contains the extract, some questions, and all the points we've discussed, as well as some recommended reading. Thank you for joining me in this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and in the meantime, happy writing.